Hello students, I welcome you all to the new course which is introduced by Savitribai Phule Pune University, and the name of course is Democracy, Election and Governance. This course is recently introduced by the university, not only by our university but by other universities as well. The purpose of introduction of this course is to introduce the students with the concept of democracy. University, UGC and overall Government of India wants a better citizen for better democracy. Therefore, it is introduced so that students can become aware citizens and they can develop themselves as a better citizen for stronger democracy. Now we are going to discuss the first point which is mentioned in the syllabus, that is democracy. Now we are going to discuss about meaning, definition and pillars of democracy. Basically we will see the concept of democracy in these three aspects. First I will discuss one definition which says that democracy is a government of the people, by the people and for the people. This definition is given by Abraham Lincoln. You can see clearly that when he is describing the concept of democracy, clearly he is saying that whatever you are doing in democracy, it's all about people. You are electing your own people, they are governing the country and they are working and governing for the people. So people is in the core of the concept. So in short we can say that essential importance is given to people. So that in short we can say that essential importance is given to people. Hence we can say that democracy deals with the people. It's all about people. And basically when this concept of democracy was given by Abraham Lincoln at that time, the meaning and we can say the aspect of the concept of democracy was narrow at that time. But now day by day the meaning and aspect of this concept is broadening. Therefore we can say that initially we started with the small and narrow meaning, but now we have reached to the higher level. So the today's meaning is just not to just elect your we can say representatives and your task is over. That is not expected in today's democracy. Then what is expected? That active participation is required. Each and every person is required to participate in the governance actively. Therefore, the concept of local governance is brought in India, to which we call Panchayat Raj. We will discuss about that in upcoming we can say series, and first of all let's stick to this concept of democracy. So what we saw in this, when we saw this definition, it clearly says that people are sovereign, right? People are supreme. Even though we have Supreme Court, we have executive, we have legislature, even though these all bodies are there, these all institutions are there, these all institutions are working only for people, right? And therefore we can say that essential importance is given to people in the concept of democracy. And when we elect our representatives, so it doesn't mean that we have given all the powers to those representatives to do anything they want. This is not true in democracy. Why I'm saying? Because whenever we elect any political party or our representatives, of course they get some rights, they get some political rights, but it doesn't mean that they can behave arbitrarily. Then what is expected? Almost in modern countries, in modern world and especially in modern democracies, written document is there, to which we call constitution, according to which every government has to work. there is no option but to work as per the constitution. Even if anyone tries to change the constitution, it's not that easy. Why it is not easy? Because for every reason, for every action, you need support of the people, you need consent of the people. So therefore, we can say consent of the people is important for doing anything in democracy. Even though we have elected our government, still we have been conferred with few fundamental rights, few basic rights. Who is giving this basic right? Not the government. So these basic rights are given by the constitution itself. In our constitution, we have a chapter, special chapter on duties and rights. So we have maintained balance between rights and duties. So we can say that every citizen has fundamental rights, they have fundamental rights and they do have fundamental duty as well. And whenever we talk about democracy, so the ultimate aim or goal of the government is to work for the interest of the people and not for the interest of the politicians or interest of the government. Therefore, the interest of people is kept in mind while dealing with the democracy. So in short, we can say that the public interest is kept in mind while governing in any democratic setup. So now we will look into two types of democracies. First is direct democracy and second is indirect democracy. When we talk about direct democracy, it clearly says that people are directly participating in governance. Means what? That whenever a government wants to take any decision, first they have to take consent of each and every citizen living in that country. It looks good, but it is quite difficult to implement in countries like India or any big countries. In small countries it is quite practicable, but in big countries it becomes difficult. Therefore, what option was remaining? The second option is indirect democracy. In indirect democracy, what we do, we elect our representatives on our behalf and we send them in the legislature. We send them in parliament and we send them in the state legislature. We are giving our rights and powers to someone who will act on our behalf in the parliament or in the state legislature. Therefore, we elect our representatives to take decision. So this is second, we can say, type of democracy. And when we talk about indirect democracy, so definitely what is happening over here, that the people's participation is reduced. Once we have elected our representatives, then our role is over. Whatever governance is there, then our representatives will carry out. Therefore, we brought the next version, which is local governments. We can say almost every country in the world now they are implementing or they are trying to implement local government. Means what? We are trying to reach out to people, we are trying to give more power to people so that they themselves can decide their future. If I give example of any city in the country like Pune, Mumbai or Kolkata, you take any one you want, whatever the problems are there in Pune or Mumbai, it cannot be decided by Delhi, right? Therefore, the problems of Pune and Mumbai are better understood by the people living in those cities. Therefore, we brought the local governments. We brought the local government. And what these governments will do, they will take the decision. They, whatever problems we are facing, for example, traffic problem is there, transportation is there, or electricity problem is there, sanitization is there. So all such kinds of problems are dealt with the local government. We discussed that one side we have direct democracy and second side we have indirect democracy. So we saw benefits and drawbacks of both these concepts. Now many people question on democracy regarding that democracy doesn't contain, or we can say we do not find qualitative people in democracy. right? But this criticism is not that correct, because the one who really wants to serve the nation, they can enter into politics, and contesting election is option kept open for all the people. There is no discrimination on the lines or on the grounds of gender, caste, race, nothing. Each and every citizen of this country is eligible to contest election, enter into politics, get elected by the people, and be the part of government. So therefore, those all criticisms shall be kept aside, even though we can say that that looks relevant, but actually it is not that relevant. So now we came to one point, that whenever we discuss about indirect democracy, we have local governments or local bodies to facilitate people at ground level. And next point, when we talk about democracy, here many times we listen that majority is, or we can say many times we listen or we observe that democracy is all about majority. Even though this criticism also looks good, but this is also not completely true. The reason is, even though we take decisions on the basis of majority, but at that time also we have to keep one thing in our mind, that minority rights are protected by the constitutions. Those who have not voted for a particular political party doesn't mean that they will be discriminated. They cannot be discriminated, because we have a written document called as Constitution. This Constitution protects people. This Constitution maintains basic rights of each and every citizen of the country. Therefore, let any political party or let any political person get elected, that doesn't matter much over here, because as I said in the beginning, each and every person, each and every government has to act according to the constitution which is laid down by our country. And we must know that the constituent makers or the constitution makers, they have taken a lot of efforts to make one of the best constitution in the world for our country. One may question that which constitution is best in the world. Is it Indian constitution, American constitution, British constitution? So the answer is, every constitution is best as per the society in which it is applicable. For example, American constitution cannot be implemented in India, because American constitution is altogether different, and the culture of Indian or the culture of Indians is altogether different. Therefore, we cannot implement American constitution in India. So what we need to do, we need to frame separate constitution for Indians, and therefore we did that. We can say we started this process of making constitution before independence itself. We can say the Constituent Assembly, to whom this task of making constitution was given to, started their work in the year 1946 itself, and they completed the constitution around in 1949 1950. In real sense, we can say, in real sense, the Constitution of India was implemented in the year 1950. Then onward, we have been practicing the same constitution which we have at present today. So now we will look at the pillars of democracy on which the democracy is standing upon. Therefore, we have to look at those pillars, and without which the democracy cannot sustain. Okay, so first is sovereignty of the people. Now, what do you mean by sovereignty? Sovereignty means supremacy. Supremacy means, we can say, most importance or essentiality of that concept. And as we discussed at the beginning, that individual or people or citizens are the core of democracy. Therefore, if you discuss, or if you are to think that who is supreme, is it parliament, is it judiciary, is it executive? So the answer is no, they are not supreme. Supreme is people. People are supreme. Okay. The only thing is that people have given rights, political rights, to politicians and the government. Therefore, in short, we can say that parliament acts as supreme body of the country, who makes laws on behalf of people. So therefore, we can say people are sovereign in democracy. And whenever we talk about democracy, the consent is highly essential. Whenever people give consent to the politicians, whenever give consent to the government, then only they can become the part of the government. Unless and until people vote them in election, they cannot claim to be the representative of people. Therefore, what we can say, that consent of the people or the consent of the governed is highly important in democracy. This is also the one of the pillar of democracy. And thirdly, majority rule. As I said, that decisions are taken on the basis of majority. If you get majority votes in parliament, you can make the law. If you get less votes in parliament, you cannot make the law. This is as simple as it is. So it is based on majority. Whatever majority people or whatever majority representative says, as per that, policies and bills are framed. And next one is minority rights. Even though we have majority rule, still we have minority rights. And who protect these rights? Of course, Constitution of the country, right? If you're talking about India, so we have Constitution of India to protect basic and fundamental rights of the people. So therefore, minority rights are protected in the country. And these rights, of course, are protected by the judiciary, because judiciary is known as guardian of the constitution. Even though we have majority rule, doesn't mean that majority rule is sustained all the time. So here we can say majority is required only for passing any bill or policies in the parliament. So therefore, minority rights are maintained. And we can say it is a kind of guarantee of protecting basic human rights, right? And now United Nations organization, UNO, has also laid down a particular set of law for protection of the basic human rights. So therefore, we can say that those countries who are member of UNO, in short, they are bound to follow those guidelines given by United Nations organization. So here we can say that basic human rights are preserved and maintained by judiciary. Next point is free and fair election. This is highly important pillar of democracy. When you talk about election, only election is not required. It's free and fair election. Means what? Such kind of atmosphere where there will be no violence, no terror, and complete peace is maintained. When complete peace is maintained, then only people can act as per their reason, as per their ability. Otherwise, if there is an atmosphere of terror and violence, so you cannot expect neutral vote to be casted by the people. It can be manipulated. Therefore, free and fair elections are required for better democracy or for getting elected better government. And next one is equality before law. This is also one of the essential pillar, equality before law. When we talk about equality before law, it clearly states that each and every citizen is treated equally in the eyes of law. This principle talks about that each and every person, right? Each and every person is treated equally in the eyes of law. When we say in the eyes of law, what does it mean? That whenever a person, is discriminated, whenever fundamental rights or legal rights are violated by some other person or by the government or anyone else, so in such case each and every citizen has the right to approach judiciary. We have district courts, we have high courts, and at the top we have Supreme Court. We can approach judiciary, and whenever we approach judiciary makes sure that we get justice. And therefore here judiciary will not see he is rich person or poor person, he is men, she is women. Such kind of discriminations are not done. So therefore you have to have a better and stronger judiciary which will give justice, or which will deliver justice neutrally without tilting towards any of the side. So therefore judiciary is also bound to follow constitution, and therefore we can say that equality before law is maintained. Not only because judiciary is there, because judiciary is also following the constitution, and therefore there is higher possibility that the law will be prevailing. Okay, law will prevail. So therefore equality before law is maintained. Next point is constitutional limitations on the government. As we discussed at the beginning, that even though we are electing governments in the country, doesn't mean that they get all the powers, right? So therefore what are limitations are there? That whenever you try to go beyond the articles of the constitution, judiciary is there to scrap your laws. So for example, I will give you one example of parliament, for like NJAC, National Judicial Appointments Commission. So this bill was passed by the parliament, but when Supreme Court found that this bill violates the very basic core, basic structure of the constitution, immediately Supreme Court quashed this law or dismissed this law, and this law became null and void. So in such case we can say that the decisions or the policies or bills are scrapped completely by the judiciary if they are unlawful or if they are against the constitution. So we can say that they are having particular limitation on their powers, on their rights. Okay, and last one is, of course, it is all about people, that values of tolerance, pragmatism, cooperation and compromise. In every democracy, it is expected that we should support each other, we should cooperate each other, right? And therefore the principle of tolerance is highly important. Even we can say whatever I might be saying, you may not agree with that, right? So it doesn't mean that you will do violence or you will go for violence. What is expected over here? That even though you do not agree, you can raise your voice, you can go to judiciary and you can challenge me against me in the judiciary. Lastly, we can say that tolerance is expected in each and every citizen of the country. Why it is important? Because laws are there to regulate the society, and if we ourselves take law in our hand, then there is higher possibility that justice will not be delivered. I'll give you for example, if you claim that someone has murdered another person, so your claim is okay, your claim is correct, so police will take action as per that, but you or the police doesn't have authority to punish that person. Why? Because we have judiciary at that place, right? If someone has committed any crime, so judiciary is there to punish them. After a free and fair trial, judiciary will come to the conclusion whether the person is guilty or not, and as per that judiciary will punish the guilty person. So therefore we are not supposed to take law in our hand, and that is why maximum tolerance is expected to be extended or shown by each and every citizen of the country. So this was all about democracy. We saw meaning, definition, and the, we can say, core pillars of democracy. So now at the end I conclude this session and I thank you all for peacefully listening. Thank you.